Good afternoon, Derby, and welcome to another episode of Brilliant Derby. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you this afternoon. So welcome, welcome, welcome. It's exciting times at Brilliant Derby. We've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Today, more than usual, there's lots of different things going on behind the scenes, but we're working towards helping creating a more brilliant derby. So we've got interesting guests today. We've got more opportunities in the future. And soon you're going to see an email address that's coming up at the top of the screen for if you want to get involved. So you're going to see a ticker now that says, if you want to be part of Brilliant Derby, please drop us an email. So please drop us an email at yes@brilliantderby.org if you'd love to get involved. And there's opportunities in all different types of ways. We're looking for a host, somebody to host Brilliant Derby. So if you want to do that, if you fancy yourself in front of the camera, go for it. If you'd rather be behind the scenes, maybe on the more technical side, there's an opportunity there too. But also, if you'd love to be a guest on Brilliant Derby or contribute a session as well, we would love to hear from you. So please get involved. yes@brilliantderby.org. Whilst we're doing this online YouTube stuff, who knows what we'll end up doing in real life in the future. So without further ado, conscious of time, welcome everybody to Brilliant Derby. And today we've got a very special episode because we've got not one, but two special guests. Two special guests from Derby who are going to be sharing some of their expertise with us today. So without further ado, it's time to go over to our special guests, Jamie and Lauren. Are you there? Give me a wave, please. Hey, look at this. 3 people on the screen. Look at that. Never looked so cozy. Fantastic. What we're going to do, we're going to go start with Jamie, and then we're going to come to you, Lauren. But Jamie, it's fantastic. Jamie Gratton, we'd love to know, would you be able to just introduce yourself for those new to Brilliant Derby, please?
Yes, certainly. My name's Jamie. I'm founder and director of a lived experience-led recovery organisation called Staywell Derby. All the directors are lived experience of mental health, addiction, homelessness, domestic abuse and all that. And we've come together to offer a proactive approach to support within the city. So we work with anybody who comes through our doors at the Wellbeing Centre in a peer-led way. And using our own recovery tools we've learned over our period of time to actually support those before they get into crisis, before they get into the need of services, to help them build a really strong well-being within their own life.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Jamie. Really appreciate that, and especially the link to pre-crisis, the link to pre-crisis, and again, you've got that experience, which is so important because credibility matters. When speaking about such sensitive topics, it matters that, if you're in that difficult position, that the person that you're speaking with can relate to you. So really love what you're doing. We're going to come to that in a bit more detail in a second, because I know it's a very special time of year for you. So we're going to come a little bit to that very soon. But over to Lauren. Please, would you be able to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Lauren Jones. I'm Lived Experience Director at Staywell Derby. So I work very closely with Jamie and tying in a lot with what you just said there about kind of the value of experiential knowledge. What we aim to do as an organisation is to promote that, and some can be valuable and useful and be used to support people. So my background is I've got personal experience of complex trauma and going through crisis and difficulty accessing services and coming through that. And I'm also doing a PhD that's related to using lived experience to understand better how people can be helped. So very much for the peer support element of things.
Wow, that's so interesting. And again, when you say the word crisis, I think, when I was at uni at Loughborough, my mates were studying the crisis module, like business in crisis, back then in like 2015, 16. And, the crisis is now a word that everybody's familiar with, everybody's lived through it. And, linking to the lived experience of living through a crisis. Coming to Jamie, would you be able to share, like, what's it been like, because again, I'd love to know where Staywell Derby is at in terms of this time of year. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that, but also going on this journey in a crisis itself. How's that been for you?
It's been very interesting. We actually are a year old coming up, and we actually started Staywell in the middle of lockdown last year. So as you can imagine, it's been quite a rocky road, but we were so passionate and felt that what we want to bring to Derby was going to be so needed going forward. We didn't want to hang around, so we've managed to secure a building and set up a wellbeing centre, which is due to be opened as soon as we can. But we're also running online support. It has had its difficulties. I think wellbeing has been tested to its limits over the last year, and people have found all interesting ways of dealing with it. And we're just the same. We're in recovery from our own situation, so it's been more important for us to maintain our own recoveries in this period of time, and having all the pressure of actually setting up a social enterprise at the same time just has a real big impact on that. But it's been a great journey.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Jamie. Congratulations for 1 year. You know, to start something and to start a movement for good in May, in lockdown one, is really, really commendable. So thanks so much for doing that again for the people of Derby. You know, and that's the main part here, and that's why you're on Brilliant Derby, because of your outstanding contributions to the community. But I want to dive deeper into something you just said about you know, the experience, because that really, really matters, doesn't it? You know, doing these things in a crisis, you know, and again, this is why I'm really curious that, you know, Lauren's doing a PhD, but like, you know, you can learn so much theory about a crisis. You can learn so much theory about all of these kinds of things. But what would you say in terms of living through a crisis, you know, over these past 12 months, what has been kind of the main things that have stuck out to you about well-being? Because like Jamie said, well-being has been tested. Anybody who would describe themselves as a well-being has had to look in the mirror. You know, they've had to look in the mirror. They've had to look about the habits that they've had. They've had to look about the way that they impact those around them. What would you say are the main things that stick out to you about people's well-being over this time, over the past year?
Is that to me, Sanj?
Pardon?
Is that directed towards me?
Yeah. Please, Lauren. Yeah, please.
Sorry. Yeah. So I think first of all, talking about the word crisis, you're right. It can mean different things to different people. So when I'm talking through having lived through crisis and experienced crisis, I'm talking about mental health crisis. So having really got to a very, very dark place with mental health, and that becoming sort of life-threatening. And obviously we use the word crisis in terms of the pandemic. So I'm also a director of and owner of Time to Thrive, which is a partner organisation of Staywell. And again, that's lived experience led. So I had been established just for about a year before lockdown. And, you know, March last year or February last year, having lived through how difficult it is already to access service, mental health service. And I also used to work as a healthcare professional in the NHS. I was a speech and language therapist. So I had a lot of, even with that knowledge and even being one of the professionals within the healthcare system, there were still so many barriers to accessing support and the support that I needed. So having that experience of going through that, going into March last year, I was acutely aware, as was Jamie, as were the other directors, of how much more difficult it was going to be for people who were already experiencing difficulties with their mental health and surrounding factors, or socioeconomic difficulties, or addiction issues, or you know, the impact of stress and existing anxiety and trauma. So throughout the last year, I was delivering a free COVID response through Time to Thrive, through video call, to try and support the most vulnerable people. And what I saw again and again and again, and we have seen again and again in Staywell, is that there are so many people who are slipping through the net and not able to access the support they needed. And these are people who, like us and like a lot of people, don't easily fit into a box. So, you know, they might have mental health difficulties, they might have past trauma, they might have current stress, and maybe multiple diagnoses, and have socioeconomic difficulties as well. So there's a lot of people falling through the net. And yeah, I think the thing that's the thing that I've learned through this experience is just how many people they are and how complex people's needs are and how they need to be in silos. I don't know if that answers your question. I've gone a bit off track.
Oh no, it's fantastic though. And again, you've highlighted a few, really, really important areas there. Firstly, about crisis in terms of how that would be different for different people depending on the crises they've faced. But also, really, really poignantly at the end there in terms of people slipping through the net. And of course, that is one of the main reasons for Brilliant Derby occurring, because there are people that we're used to seeing in person, we're used to checking in with, we can read body language signals, we can feel the kind of energy in a room with these other people, and we're not able to access these people right now. So what we can do is like, and I'm going to come to Jamie in a second to talk more about online, but, having initiatives like this and, offering services like you did, Lauren, offering video calls, phone calls, texting people, all these things, just checking in with others is something that has gone a bit to the side in terms of the ability to check in with others, in terms of what we can read from that situation, but it's become more important to do so. So even though it's not the same experience as being in a room with somebody and having a cup of tea, a video call is still better than not. You know what I mean? So it's important that we still do that checking, and I think that's really important what you said there. But Jamie, I'd love to come to you, and I'd love to learn a bit more about what your experiences are a bit of online during this time, because you've got many hats on, Jamie, and I know you do lots of amazing things. But what would you say about online, and maybe coming more to the point that Lauren was making about giving people access to content, whether that's videos, whether that's resources, whether that's just motivation, whether that's a phone call? What would you say about online during this time? How have your experience been about supporting those people who need it the most during this time?
Before I go on, I'd like to say that one of the things I've noticed around wellbeing in Derby at the moment, that there's been a real good community response done by services, council, individuals, organisations, and we seem to all coming together with that same sort of vision. And there's some great stuff online. In Spirit of Arts have done some great stuff, Art Court and all that sort of stuff. So I'm a great believer in online is just as important as face-to-face. Staywell is set up to do both. So all our face-to-face stuff will be online at the same time, because there is a number of people who can't come in. If you've got people who've got quite severe health anxiety now, who after a year in lockdown don't want to leave their house, and then you're telling them to come in to get some support, they ain't going to do it. So to have that option of online, and we run online groups at the moment, it has been difficult. A lot of organisations don't have the funding or the technology knowledge to actually do online, so it's been a steep learning curve for a lot of people. So we run a few online support groups at the moment. We've run Creativity, Expressive Creative. We've run a smart recovery group for prescription medication. So people who found themselves addicted to painkillers through the doctors, through antidepressants, because obviously there's a lot of people on antidepressants for more than a year now and that sort of stuff. We do one around food and emotional mental health, eating and stuff like that. And they've been really good. But what's allowed is actually groups of people who might not necessarily come for face-to-face support to access that support in a very safe way. And I feel that it has changed in some way, support. I'm lucky enough to work with Lauren on the Time to Thrive stuff as well. And actually being able to support clients face to face on video chat has been really good. It's really been able to work around actually getting more in depth in things where you're not having to come in, find a room and that sort of stuff. So it has its benefits, and I think it's been really useful. The issue we've got though is we have still got a country where digital poverty is a major issue. So a lot of the vulnerable people haven't got access to that. So they're falling through the net in the second time now. So because there's a lot of people don't have access to internet, don't have access to computers, don't even have the knowledge to do it. So that digital poverty makes it the downside of that. So hopefully face-to-face stuff's coming back in soon, especially around mental health support and stuff like that. So it has got its benefits, but I think we do need to find a mix of both, of where people can meet face to face, but also have that online support if needed.
No, that's really powerful, Jim. That's really, really powerful. Again, because one of the the pros of online is that it's given those people who, like you said at the start, would rather not come in person. And there were people, there were millions of people like that pre-lockdown. It's given them a voice. It's given them an opportunity to express themselves, and it's almost made it more of an even field, so to say. Where there's different ways of expression. And before you would be, to socialize, you'd have to go out, you'd have to meet people, you'd have to stand in a circle, you'd have to stand in a group, contribute to a conversation. Whereas now you can do that virtually, and it helps when people are the same size on a call. There's no bigger icon than the other, and all these kinds of things. But also in terms of text, there could be people watching the seminar, there could be people watching the training session or making notes, and they could just be doing that typing and contributing that way. And before, if you would ask a question to a group of people, you would have done lots of amazing mental health workshops in person. But if you ask them a question in person, there might be people who just don't have the courage or the confidence to speak out. Whereas on an internet platform, if you ask a question, people can share. And they might not want to go in video, they might not want to go in audio, but they've still got their chat box. So it's really interesting how that's kind of developing, Jamie. And I really believe that there will be a combination of both, and I think that will be for the betterment of society. But just conscious of time, Lauren, and conscious of time, Jamie, I want to end this conversation. I feel like we could have a conversation for hours. Gosh, this could be amazing. But I want to just finish on asking you both on one top tip for people to sustain their well-being going forward. So life is tough right now. Life is really tough, and I consciously chose one because I know there's hundreds that you could choose from. So I'm going to put you in a bit of a spot and ask you just for one. But what would you say the one top tip that you believe, maybe from your own experience or maybe from the experience of others, that's really helped during this really tough time of life? So I'll come to you first, Lauren, please.
That's a huge question. I think I would have to go for social connectedness. We know how important that is from our own experiences and from the research, how important it is to belong to groups, whether that's, a kind of very specific group, like a recovery group or a social group or a family group, or that kind of identity as, a male, a female, a cis, trans community, like the importance of belonging to communities and accessing support from those communities. That would be my top tip. And
that's beautiful. Yeah, no, fantastic. That's fantastic. Again, Lauren, and that's why, Jamie mentioned all the fantastic stuff that's been done in Derby, which is brilliant. And, the intention behind Brilliant Derby is to build up that community element, build up these things that you're speaking about, and just give awareness to the different areas and parts of Derby which are promoting support during this time. So love that connection. Really appreciate that, Lauren. And coming to Jamie, one super top tip from you, Jamie, for people to sustain well-being during this time.
I've got one not to do, and that's start a CIC in the middle of a lockdown. But I suppose for me, because I'm a spoken word artist, and writing for me has been quite a strong part of my own recovery. I encourage people to be creative, encourage people to write. Expressive writing is amazing. It doesn't have to make sense, it doesn't have to take any form, but it's really good to get what's inside out. And then if you want to post it, post it. There's no form of spoken word. Staywell run a spoken word event called Silent Voices. So, and it's just anybody turns up. And the power it is in that, when you've got people with shared experiences actually performing things they've written about them experiences, it's soul cleansing, it's uplifting, it's moving, it's emotional, it connects us all. And as Lauren said, connection is the biggest thing. If we don't connect as a community, if we don't connect as a society, if we don't connect as individuals, we can't do what needs to be done to go forward. So creativity brings that, music, writing, art, all about connectivity, all about emotion.
That is fantastic. What a strong note to finish on. Again, yeah, theme of connection so big. But also I think what James says is really important. It's not just about connecting to others, it's about connecting to ourselves. And, you know, connecting to ourselves, but also expressing ourselves. Because again, Lauren would know much more. Maybe we can have this conversation another day, Lauren. But in terms of the emotions that we have within us, the thoughts and feelings, you're being very modest now. But, you know, there's thoughts and feelings that we have, you know, we can, you know, if we don't express them, it can lead to difficulties going forward. So having that one as a support group is really important. You mentioned about connection, but also James said, if you maybe don't have the people around you who you can really trust to share your honest feelings and thoughts with, get it down on a piece of paper, type it out on your screen, draw something, listen to something, you know, all these kinds of creative things that Jamie mentions, really, really powerful. So I just want to say thank you so much, Jamie, and thanks so much, Lauren, for your time. I'm sure we'll have a conversation again soon. This could definitely go on for such a long time, which is amazing. And again, if you do want to get involved with Brilliant Derby, please feel welcome to message us. And this is going to be a long-term initiative within Derby. So there's lots of amazing work. So this is just another platform to give a shout out to those people doing fantastic work in Derby. And, you know, in the captions below, we're going to have more information on how you can find out more about the brilliant work that Jamie and Lauren are doing. So, you know, if you do want to get in touch directly, there'll be a pathway for that too. But Jamie and Lauren, I'm going to give you a little wave to say thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you this afternoon, and look forward to meeting you in person one day soon. That's the dream, isn't it? And until then, stay well and see you soon. Ta-ra.